Welcome to the Idle Talk podcast. My name's Peyton, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Jacob. Season 48 is nearly here, and that means it's time for first impressions of the new cast, a quick analysis and prediction of how we think they will do, and then we're going to draft teams. We're going to split up the castaways between the two of us and hope that our team has the winner. Jacob, last season you had the winner. You had Rachel.
Whoop, whoop.
And so it was your first time between the two of us to take away with or to leave with the win. It was the third time we've done it. I picked Dee and Kinsey, and then you had Rachel, but I'm going to put an asterisk next to that because it was your very last pick. So
hey, you didn't pick her.
I didn't pick her either. I can't claim anything on that. I actively left you with Rachel.
Yeah.
So it is just as much on it's more on me not picking Rachel. And I think maybe we might even have some conversation here when we're talking about these players, about as we're looking for the winner of this season, things we can learn from these past winners, including Rachel, in when we're looking at these players, what we're looking for in a winner.
Also, a disclaimer, these are very surface level takes from a 1-minute clip that we watched of these contestants. So these are our opinions, and they are based on basically nothing. So
yeah, they're first impressions. It's the way you judge someone when they walk into a room, and that's your first impression of someone. That's essentially what we have to go off of here. We have a little blurb, a write-up on Entertainment Weekly that's out there that has some Q&As that everyone has access to. So we have that information. There's also some interviews that Mike Bloom did with them out on the island before they entered the game. I have not watched any of the actual interviews. I've listened to Mike Bloom and Rob Cesternino talk about the castaways some, but I've not actually watched any of the interviews. And I'm sure, like, if I watched all, 9 hours of content that is, yeah, I would have a really good grasp on these players. But I didn't do that. One, because I didn't want to put in 9 hours to that
either
before we needed to record this. And two, because I knew you weren't going to have the time to do that. So I probably could have, but I was like, I didn't think that was the best decision to make, to go into this, like, having consumed all this extra content about the players and you not having that same advantage. Because what if I don't pick the winner then? Then you're going to hold that over my head forever. And I don't want that.
That'd be really embarrassing.
So I'm not going to do that. So today, yeah, we're going off of really just their 1-minute spot that goes out on social media, the little write-up we have online, and their picture. And that's it. The one other thing that we do have, I'm going to go ahead and take us into it, is we do have the group photo. Just looking at the group photo, I do want to ask, a little unconventional, we haven't done this before. Does anything stand out to you when you look at this group, the group photo of the castaways?
Okay, I think one thing that stands out to me is this cast as a whole seems very physical. Like, It seems like there are a lot of physically fit people on this season. I also...
Yeah.
This is so surface level, but, like, why is it a really hot cast?
I would say yes. It, like, in general, yes. It's a very attractive cast, and I do think it is a very, like, physically fit and challenge oriented cast in terms of, like, the physical aspect of challenges. This doesn't seem like a puzzle cast. This is a swimming and balance beams and throwing like sandbags and lifting things cast.
And even the guy who I thought was going to be weak, they showed him. I mean, we'll talk about him later. But the guy who I was like, oh, he's definitely on the weekend. And then he was like freaking ripped from lifting pizzas all day. And I was like, oh, okay.
Oh yeah, he's like, he's like PETA from Hunger Games ripped. Like he's bakery ripped. He's lifting like flour bags ripped. So it's a different kind of physical. It's all of the men I think are physically strong. I would say probably the one who isn't is Thomas.
Yeah,
seems probably not physically strong, like in a traditional sense, but Thomas is a bigger guy in terms of like he seems tall. I don't have his height, but he seems like a tall guy. So he just seems like naturally he would be able to carry his own. Like he's not gonna be a hindrance to the tribe. Granted, we've seen like Jelinski drop the ball, so you can't take things too much at surface level. But I think Thomas seems like probably the weakest of the men, maybe in challenges, or Cedric potentially. Both of them have the white collar jobs, being like doctor and music executive. But in general, I think all the men feel like very like physically strong, a lot more so than usual. And even the women, like you've got, I think, like Eva and Chrissy and Charity, like I think they're going to be strong competitors physically, especially like Eva and Charity, I think are going to be very strong in the physical aspect of challenges.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is shaping up to be, this cast does scream honestly very old school, I think, in terms of just the casting in general. So, and just from watching everyone's videos as a whole, I feel much more drawn to this cast as a whole than I did in 47. And so for that fact, I am much more excited for this season.
Yeah, the new era trend continues of even seasons giving more exciting casts. It was a trend with like 42 and then 44 upstaged 42 and then 46 upstaged 44. And so now it looks like 48 is also going to come on strong. It seems like there's always like a weaker cast and then a stronger cast and then a weaker and then stronger. And it kind of ebbs and flows. 40, like obviously there are strong characters or strong players in the odd number season as well. But holistically looking at the even number seasons, they tend to be just kind of better, more well-rounded casts. And I think that this is shaping up to be a pretty exciting cast. And it feels a lot like the preseason of 46 did. I feel a lot better going into this season than I did going into last season.
I agree.
All that being said, I think we just dive right in. The first tribe, what we're sticking with, as always, the even number seasons are secondary colors. So that's orange, green, and purple, as always. So the orange tribe, we're going to start with them. They are Civa. The first player on the Civa tribe is Charity. Charity's 34, currently living in St. Pete, Florida. She's a flight attendant. She's also, I think, she's also like a wellness coach or something.
I don't know.
I think she's also
Didn't
like
you
a
say
Disney,
she did? I was going to say,
yeah, she's also
Disney?
like a Disney influencer. She doesn't talk about that in any of her stuff, but I looked at her online, and her whole page is just filled with her going to Disney over and over and over and just vlogging on Instagram. So she does that, and she describes herself as bold, fun, and loyal. What are your first impressions of Charity?
I said, Charity is so me. I
So
said,
mean?
so me.
Oh, so you. I see.
I said, I think she has a lot of world experience that will help her in the game because she has, in such a short time, like, because she's still pretty young. She seems to have done a lot, from the stuff with going to ministry school and then dropping out and becoming a flight attendant and all that stuff. I said, I think if she can contain her threat level, she will be a good player. She gives off the vibe as being a good player, but I think that other people are going to pick up on the vibe of her being a good player. But I do think she will go far.
Yeah, she, like, her story, I think, is really good. Like you said, you kind of touched on it there, where she was in ministry school and she weighed 100 pounds more than she wanted to. And she just felt like she was not who she wanted to be. And so she left ministry school. She lost 100 pounds and is doing, she's a flight attendant, is a fitness coach for others, and is living her life to the fullest. And now is on Survivor. I think it is, I will say, like, I agree with everything you said. I think it's very much to her advantage that this cast only saw a little bit of season 47 before going out, because I don't know how much of 47 they saw, but they didn't get to Genevieve's takeover for sure. They didn't get that far in, because she kind of gives me a little bit of Genevieve. And I
can
think
definitely see that.
If they had seen 47s in its entirety, I think people would be really worried about Charity coming off of 47. And so I think it's to her benefit that this cast has not seen much of 47, if any of it. Some of them probably haven't seen any of it, because a lot of this cast actually doesn't watch much Survivor, which is very unconventional for the new era.
Yes.
And so we'll talk about that with a few of these players. So she kind of gives me a little bit of Genevieve vibes. I think that she's going to be a good player, but I think that there's a chance that she's identified as a threat early.
Yeah. It seems like we have pretty similar read on her.
Yeah. I think that it totally is going to depend on if she can find a number one, like a good number one. And if she has a strong alliance, and if her number one is perceived as a big threat, then I think that puts her in a good spot to go far in the game. But if she is in the power position out of the duo or something like that, and they're going to go after her, like, that could be a problem, where it could be sort of a Sierra and Sam situation, and then she leaves right after the merge. So I could see her being first seat on the jury potentially, or I could see her going really far. I struggle to see a world where she leaves pre-merge, though. I don't know if you agree with that, but I don't know if I necessarily see her leaving pre-merge.
I don't either. I think she's a strong contender to at least make the merge.
Yeah, it would take Civa really struggling for her to leave pre-merge, I think.
So next up we have Chrissy Sarnowski,
yes.
Sarnowski. She is 55. She lives in the south side of Chicago, and she is a fire lieutenant, and she describes herself as badass, lucky, and generous. What were your thoughts on Chrissy?
So I think that Chrissy is going to be a fan favorite. She gives me fan favorite vibes. I think Chrissy is very safe getting into the merge. I don't see Chrissy leaving pre-merge, and I think that Chrissy is just gonna has that sort of personality and loyalty that people are gonna want to keep around. I see her more as like relationship driven, very loyal player. She's like blue collar, very old school player vibes. And she said that she doesn't like super fans, and she thinks that 3D printing puzzles and practicing is cheating. That's her hot take. She thinks that's like,
that's so funny.
She thinks that's like like those are like survivor sweats.
She wants
basically
to fight Carson.
Yes, literally. So I just think that her personality is going to lend herself to having people that she's connected to in good relationships with, and that people aren't really afraid of. I think that she makes it relatively deep into the game, potentially, because I think that Civa is strong pre-merge.
I think she seems like a very driven woman. She has accomplished a lot, especially in a male-dominated field.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that she will want to be like the workhorse of her tribe. And I fear that if she sees people not pulling their weight, she may come across as abrasive. And it's either going to work in her favor where other people are going to be like, yeah, these people aren't pulling their weight, let's get them out of here. Or they're going to be like, Chrissy is bossy, let's get her out of here.
Yeah, she says like very specifically that like she recognizes she's the oldest contestant this season. And so she wants to be like the cool aunt of her tribe and wants to avoid the weight and pressure of being the leader. But I have a hard time imagining that when push comes to shove that she's going to be able to avoid it. It's sort of like Bruce really wanted to be the cool uncle, but
end up being
he kept
leader.
Just being the leader. Like he couldn't help himself in telling people what to do. I do, however, think that it is to her advantage that this cast is older. So she may be the oldest on the tribe, but the age gap in this cast is not as much as it was in like 45 when Bruce was older than them, and there were people in that season that were in their early 20s, and a pretty decent chunk of them. So whereas there's only 2 players in their 20s this season. I agree with you. It's going to depend on if she's going to be able to be Julie or if she's going to be a bit more like overbearing, maybe a little bit more like Bruce.
Yeah.
Next, we have David, chocolate milk guy. He's 39 years old. He's from California. He is a stunt performer. He describes himself as passionate, daring, and curious. I think that's a great way to describe a stunt performer. Those are probably 3 words I would just guess as stereotypical stunt performer. He's interesting because he had not watched Survivor like in decades before applying. He saw it like in season 1 or something, like when it first came out, and then hadn't seen it since. And applied, like thought about it, applied, and then has been kind of like binging Survivor before coming on the show. But his Survivor knowledge is going to be the least of anyone out there. But everyone in the preseason has been referring to him as Giga Chad, Superman.
It's accurate.
As like all of those sort of names, like those are the nicknames that they had for him, because in these like preseason interviews, they've seen each other around, but they don't know anyone's names. So when they're describing the players, every time they would describe David, the thing that would come up was like Superman looking dude or Captain America or whatever. Like He's just this big muscular guy. And he said in his video, he wants to win the most individual immunity challenges of any player ever. That's what he wants to do. What are your thoughts and impressions of chocolate milk guy, David?
I mean, I think he is just way too big of a threat to win. It's so incredibly hard for anyone of his stature to win when you're just such an obvious threat, especially if he does carry out his plan and just wants to win every single immunity challenge ever. I think if he starts to do that, especially in the early merge where he's winning challenges, especially like the frequency that Kyle was winning last season, I just don't see a world where the second he loses individual immunity, the tribe doesn't vote him out. I just find that unless he just gets in a really solid core alliance, I just don't see a world where he is able to win. I think I think there's pretty much no question in my mind he's going to make it to the merge because big physical guys carry their tribes and their tribes don't want to vote them out usually unless they're just not nice and they don't like him. But but I would be I'm willing to bet he's like a solid 11th to 12th place player.
I agree. My read is, so the comparison that everyone has is like Jonathan. The closest thing we have to him is Jonathan. I think he's just very different. Jonathan was a different type of specimen, and also he seems way more braggadocious than Jonathan was. Even though Jonathan could be a little bit cocky, Jonathan was really good about hiding it. I don't know if David's going to be that way. And then I think one of the biggest thoughts that I have is like when you were talking about Kyle. The reason Kyle was able to go on that run is last season Kyle didn't really have competition in terms of like individual immunities. Like there was just no one was able to compete with Kyle. This season, we've already talked about it. There's competition. And so I just don't, if David was in last season, maybe. If David was in any other season but 42 of the new era, maybe. But in this season, unless they're all spectacular failures like Andy, I just don't see him running the table on individual immunities post-merge. I don't think that that's something that's possible. So I think that he, like you said, I agree. I think he's going to make the merge beach. I am not confident he earns a merge buff. I think that his danger zone is the split tribal, wherever that happens. So I don't know if he earns a buff at that point, if he ends up on the jury. They changed it up last season. However they do it, I think the split tribal, depending on how the numbers pan out, I think that's his danger zone. If he ends up on a tribe where he doesn't have numbers, I think he's out. And then from there on, it's a numbers game, and I think he is a threat. So that's my thought. But I do think if he's able to bring his threat level down and maybe meat shield himself with all these other big players, form like they tried to do in 46, the what did they call it? The six?
The +1 alliance.
Yeah, that whole thing. Like if they try to do that maybe and they're successful, like whatever, maybe. But I don't see a world where it works out for him. I could also see a TK situation happening where he leaves pre-merge if he is super duper like arrogant or something. I don't get that vibe from him, but I didn't really get that vibe from TK either. But TK was it wasn't like he was bragging. He was just bringing everyone down after a loss. So we'll see. I don't think I can see him winning, though. And it seems like we're both in agreement on that one.
Mm-hmm. Next up, we have Kamilla. She is 31 from Foster City, Canada. She's a software engineer, and she describes herself as silly, expressive, and impatient. Describing herself as impatient does not bode well for the game of Survivor, to be honest.
She's in touch with herself.
Yeah.
She knows herself well and is willing to admit that. And I commend the fact that she at least recognizes that she's impatient.
What were your initial thoughts on Kamilla?
Kamilla is going one of two ways. Kamilla is either the first boot, or if she's not the first boot, which I have a hard time imagining this tribe goes to tribal first. I guess we'll talk about it later. I think the green tribe goes to tribal first, but if she's not the first boot, I think that she's going to latch on to someone and she's going to sidekick it as far as they'll take her. And I think that'll be a good strategy for her. if they can tolerate her. Because she has
a very strong personality.
Yes. I was trying to think of the best way to describe it. Because it's a different strong personality than like Star this season, because Star also has a very big personality, but Kamilla is like chatty, gonna like come up to you and like talk your ear off.
Mm-hmm.
And Star, when we get to Star, she's caffeinated, but like running in circles with the zoomies and yelling at the top of her lungs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so there's two different levels.
I said that she says that she is intentionally annoying.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, I don't know how that's going to work for you, girlfriend, but glad you're aware that you are intentionally annoying.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, I really want to see her do well, because I think she's going to make really good TV. But it's going to depend on if she vibes with her tribe or not.
Isn't this 100%. Always the way it is with the Asian women?
Yeah, I just don't know how she's going to do. But I do think that she'll be fun.
All right, who do we got next?
All right, we have 2 more left on this tribe. Next up, we have Kyle. Kyle's 31, currently living in Brooklyn. He is an attorney, but he used to be a teacher, so he's going to tell everyone that he's a teacher, because attorneys can't tell anyone that they're attorneys anymore. And he describes himself as fun, crafty, and social. What were your thoughts on Kyle?
I thought that he seems like he has a lot of life experience for his age. He seems like a person who will most likely make the merge, because he seems to me like a very personable and likable person, and also a physical person, so his tribe isn't going to want to get him out early because he'll help them stay away from tribal council. I think him and David may get along, so we will see about that. But he all around, I think he seems like a really nice guy, and I think his tribe is going to like him.
Yeah, I agree. I think Kyle's going to be a really likable player, but I think the problem with Kyle is going to lie in that he doesn't have an obvious weakness to his game. He described himself as average at everything in the game. And so he thinks he's going to be able to kind of like blend in to the middle. I agree. He seems like a pretty average, middle of the road player, and he's like well-rounded. And because of that, I think people will see him as a threat in just like they know the kind of player that can win Survivor, and he feels like the kind of player that could win Survivor, but he feels like the kind of player that people playing Survivor realize can win Survivor, and so they vote him out. That's my read on him. And so it's not like a deep read, but it's just, I think, like, I really like Kyle. Do I think he can win? I don't know. I didn't really get winner.
I didn't get winner either.
But I do think that he is well-rounded. He doesn't feel like a liability. Doesn't feel like early boot.
Yes, I agree.
So those were my thoughts on Kyle.
Yep.
And then
next,
the last one for the Orange Tribe, Civa.
We got Mitch. Mitch is 34, from Waco, Texas. He is a PE teacher, and he would describe himself as joyful, relational, and competitive. What were your thoughts on Mitch?
I really like Mitch. I like Mitch a lot. I don't think there is a world that Mitch can win.
No, I agree, because he has the Noelle arc where
I see like Eva having the Noelle arc, because like Eva seems like very like, because she's got like the physical like side. Like Mitch seems like he's going to do really well on the endurance challenges, and that side of things. But like Eva is like, I mean, she's buff. She's like a hockey player.
We're not talking about the same thing.
You're talking about someone who is a physical threat and has a story of having overcome a lot of things in their life, and then because of that narrative, people cannot take them to the end.
Okay, yes. I was just saying people will, because of his story, people will not want him sitting at the end.
Yes, and so I think it is partially because of his story, and partially because I think that he will do well post-merge in individual immunities. I think Eva is a little bit more of a threat on the like physical side. Mitch to me is a lot more of a social threat. And so because of that, I think Mitch, I think people are going to really like Mitch. I could see Kyle and Mitch hitting it off. That for some reason that makes sense to me in my brain. I just see Mitch kind of being he feels like the glue guy of the tribe that everybody loves. I just don't think Mitch is going to have enemies. And I think
that's a problem.
Yeah, Mitch's strategy is to meet Shield. He said that very explicitly, that in all of this preseason stuff, that he wants to build up, like, get as many strong like physical men around him in an alliance post merge, so that way they're the threats and not him, because he thinks that once they're all gone, he's able to just run the table. And I think that's a smart strategy. I think people are going to see through it.
Yeah. I completely agree. I think I have a hard time seeing a world in which people let him get to the end, because his story is just going to be so good if anyone lets him get to the end. So as sucky as that is, I think it is the reality.
Yeah, he is the most Survivor super fan of anyone out there. He has the most Survivor knowledge of anyone out there. He's been applying for 10 years to get on the show.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he's been working for 10 years to get on the show, compared to someone like David, who hadn't seen the show since season 1 and is on it now. On the same tribe. Very different stories. It's going to be really interesting to see if that comes up and what that dynamic is like in terms of their knowledge of the game. I'm very interested to see how that plays out. You ready to move on to the next tribe?
Yes.
The purple tribe. Let's see if the purple curse is broken. Let's see. This feels like the tribe to break it. I kind of thought that last time. But Loggy seems like they're going to break it.
Mm-hmm.
First up, Bianca Roses. Interesting to have your last name be plural. I feel like I've only ever seen it be Rose, but Bianca Roses. She's 33, currently living in Arlington, Virginia. She is a PR consultant, describes herself as bold, friendly, and enthusiastic. What did you think of Bianca Roses?
I said that she seems a little full of herself and that she thinks she will do better than she actually will. And I said that she gives early boot vibes.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So you're telling me in the draft, I don't need to take her as high as I was thinking. Is that what I'm hearing?
Did you like her a lot? Well, maybe I'll take her to steal her from you.
Go for it if you think. But my thinking is, watching her video, I was getting a lot of Michelle for sure when I first saw her video, but she seems pretty analytical as well. She's one of the few Survivor, lifelong Survivor fans. Her first screen name was Survivor Freak 815. So
her first screen name? What do you mean,
yep.
Screen name?
Screen name, online, first screen name. Nowadays, you would probably consider it to be like a gamer tag,
a username.
But she's a millennial, so this was like MySpace or something. But yes, so her first screen name was Survivor Freak 815. I don't know if she's going to be able to win because I think people are going to be able to spot it. But I think as long as this tribe isn't a disaster, I think she's going to do pretty well. I don't think she's the first boot on this tribe. I don't think she's the second boot on this tribe. There are much weaker players on this tribe than her, in my opinion. And I just see her having a strong game. And I think that she's going to be identified as a threat. She is sort of like Charity in my mind with her.
Okay. Next up, we got Eva. Eva is 24, currently living in Providence, Rhode Island. She is a PhD candidate, and she would describe herself as energetic, driven, and competitive. I said, wow, the first person with autism to play the game. But there's no way that's true. There's no way that's... I guess the first openly autistic person to ever play Survivor.
It's weird to say openly autistic, but I guess the first person with autism that is both aware of it and telling people about it.
I saw like all the memes were like, you're telling me the amount of people, the amount of super fans going on this show that don't have autism.
It's like, I could list some players that probably should be tested, but it's one of those things where it's like, it is.
What was your hyperfixation growing up?
Yeah. But like so she is autistic, and as I guess as weird as it is, like openly autistic. I don't know what the way to say that is, but diagnosed autistic perhaps. Is that the correct?
I don't know what the term is.
Yeah, let's go with that. I don't know. She's autistic, but yeah, she also plays hockey. Has played on like men's teams, like her whole life. 'Cause she was always too rough for the girls' teams, so she had to play with the boys. And so I just think I think she's going to be a strong competitor. She's also, I think she's really smart. She's studying like fluid something or another as a PhD candidate at Brown University. So she's got the brains. She's got the brawn. Look at this photo. She's slaying. Like absolutely. She's killing it.
So I asked ChatGPT, what is it called when someone is openly autistic?
Oh my God. Okay.
It says, when someone is openly autistic, it is often referred to as coming out as autistic or being autistically out.
That feels wrong.
Some people might use terms like autistic self-advocacy or autism acceptance to express that they are proudly identifying as autistic while advocating for understanding rights and inclusion.
That seems wrong. No. Identifying as autistic? No way.
That's what ChatGPT says.
You don't identify as autistic. It's a medical
autistic
diagnosis. You don't know. ChatGPT's wrong. You need to rephrase your question because that's crazy. All right. Back on Eva though. One thing she says, she like most identifies with Dee, Kinsey, Marianne, and Michelle. I think that's
all very different people.
Very different, but the way that she kind of ties them together is that she like calls them like badass, strong-willed, kind, and playing like impeccable social games. And so, psych, I scrolled up to Bianca. That's what Bianca said. I was confused for a second because I was like, that doesn't sound like what Eva would say. I was like, impeccable social game. I need to hear, what did she say?
You're telling me that she's not going to say that she has an impeccable social game?
Well, I thought she was going to say something about challenges. Yeah, here we go. Okay. She most identifies with Denise or Lindsay, female players that were super strong and absolute beasts in challenges. That's what I thought she was going to say. Something about challenges. So I think she's going to be really good in challenges. And also the fact that she has always surrounded herself like with men and like been on like boys like varsity teams and all of that stuff, I think she's just going to gravitate towards the guys. So I think this tribe, no shot of an all-girls alliance. I don't think that's happening here.
No.
So I think that she is going
especially
to,
not with one of the women who is on this tribe.
Yeah. I think that like I'm kind of like jumping here to the next one, but like I think that her and Joe, I think they're going to hit it off. Like when we talk about Joe here in a second, I see her and Joe forming like a very tight duo. I would be shocked if they don't like connect right away. Regardless, I think she's going to like hit it off with one of the men on her tribe and be very loyal. So I think that she's going to be strong, but I do see her going the way of Noelle. And once she gets into the merge, people are going to be like, we can't let you go all the way to the end because you'll win. And then she's gone.
Unless she frames it as, well, everyone has autism and some extent. It's not that big of a deal. Everyone's on the spectrum. Yeah,
I don't think she's going to do that.
That's how you play it, though.
The other thing is people might be okay with keeping her around longer than Mitch because she says that she's very loyal and she doesn't really want to play a game of blindsiding, and she can't really tell when people are lying. And so it's like Mitch, if we're putting them in the same bucket as like having a good story and being physically strong, Mitch, if he's going to slit your throat, like you're not going to be able to see it coming. I feel like Eva, you're going to be able to see it coming more likely than not. And so it's like, I would rather keep someone around that I know I can trust, and I'm going to be able to read when things are going to turn sideways. So I think that could work to her advantage, where people just might be more open, receptive, and willing to keeping her along for the ride longer. And maybe she could make it to Final 5, win Immunity Challenge because she's very like strong, win Fire or something, and like make it to the Final 3. Like that is a very like feasible thing. I think it's just going to depend on what her threat level is.
Yeah. Who do we got next?
So next up we have Joe. Already kind of alluded to this, but Joe is currently living in West Sacramento, California. He's a fire captain, so the other firefighter this season. Describes himself as, and they said to use 3 words. I don't think Joe can count because he described himself as courageous, compassionate, and loving kick-ass dad, which is not 3 words. Loving kick-ass dad is 3 words, but
that's 4 words.
No, kick-ass is hyphenated.
Doesn't that still count as 2 words?
No, hyphenated 1 word. So,
are you sure?
Yep. Ask ChatGPT about that one. So, Joe, fire captain, family man, not a survivor watcher. His sister was a survivor watcher, and he is out here playing for her, carrying out her long-held dream. What are your thoughts of Joe?
I was reading ChatGPT. Whether it is considered 1 word depends on the context. In grammar and writing, hyphenated words are often seen as a single concept or term. In dictionary listing or word counts, hyphenated words may still be counted as 2 words, depending on the format or guidelines used.
It's 1 word in this scenario.
Because it's
kick-ass.
For Joe, I think it's going to be hard for him to manage his threat level. And I think he could get mad at people who don't pull their weight, because I think that's a common trait of dads. Just because when you're a dad, you get mad at your kids when they don't do what they're supposed to do. And I think if he like leans into the dad angle in that way, he could come off as abrasive. So I think he has potential to do well, but he has some areas that could be his pitfall.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to depend on perception to an extent, but I see him, like I said, I think him and Eva are going to be a duo. because, like you said, he's a father. I think there's going to be a sort of father-daughter bond potentially forming there, but also just the two of them want to play games of loyalty. They both made that very clear, that they're loyal people that want to play games about loyalty, and they're both hardworking people that I think are going to care about pulling their weight around camp. And so because I just think they're naturally going to gravitate towards one another, and it's going to be really easy for the two of them to form a duo. And if that's the case, I think that he'll be in a pretty good position, because then you have the oldest guy on the tribe with the youngest woman on the tribe. And then they're kind of together in this alliance. And if they can bring in one more, now they're in I think, a really strong power position. And really, I think Eva, I think they probably can form an alliance between Joe, Shauhin, Eva, and who was it first?
Bianca
potentially. I don't see Thomas fitting in with them, but at least the three of them, like Joe, Eva, and Shauhin, I see them potentially all fitting together. But I don't think Joe can win. I would really like him to, because I like his story a lot. He's very old school player. I don't know. He's not seen a whole lot of Survivor. He's just very different from the players that we have around. So I'm really interested to see how he plays. I have a hard way to read how his game is going to translate to the modern era of Survivor.
Yeah.
But having someone like Eva aligned with him, if that happens, I think will go a long way at helping him.
All right. Next, we got Shauhin. That's how he says his name?
Yep.
Shauhin. He is 38, from Costa Mesa, California. He is a debate professor, and he would describe himself as charismatic, driven, and clever. What were your thoughts of Shauhin?
Before I go into my thoughts, I want to address the fact that, and I don't know if you know this, but like Shauhin, this isn't his first time in Fiji. Shauhin was the male alternate on Survivor 46, and during the pre-game isolation period where they're all seeing each other, and they all go off to do these interviews with Mike Bloom, there was this mysterious guy that everyone kept bringing up as having left an impression on them. And it was about 50-50. It either being people getting a good vibe from him or a bad vibe from him. And all we knew was he was beard guy. and then and nothing came of it. Like we didn't know anything else of it. But there was the alternate for that season was beard guy. And now we have beard guy. He's here. This is Shauhin, and he was very when they saw him, people either like immediately had like I really like this guy and I want to work with him, or they got like vibes of I don't trust this guy. And it was polarizing. Everyone had an opinion of beard guy. He was the most talked about person. This season, it's the same thing. Everyone has an opinion about beard guy. And so I think I have a similar thought that I think Shauhin just naturally draws attention. I think that you don't even have to hear him speak, but I think you are drawn to him, which I think he chose a great profession, being a debate professor, being a debater. I mean, if you're already drawn to someone who's debating before they've ever started their debate, that's pretty good. I think that if people trust him, I think Shauhin can win the game. But if he gets a reputation of snake at any point, it's game over for him. And I think it's just a matter of how he's able to walk that line of like that social savviness, because he feels like he could be a winner. He's one of the people that when I'm watching this, I'm like, he could totally win the game. But I just don't know if people are going to catch on or not. Luckily, there are so many other threats this season that he could fly under the radar. We've only seen we haven't seen the long interview. We've only seen this 1 minute clip. We have very little to go on. That's my read. I don't know what your thoughts are, but he seems like, to me, just like one of the biggest threats of everyone here.
I agree. He something about him just seems very enigmatic. I don't know how to describe it. Just some people are just like that. But I completely agree. He seems like he could very easily be the winner.
Yeah,
that was my takeaway.
And if Shauhin were to win, that would make it 2 in a row for Survivor to have the winner being an alternate for a prior season following Rachel. So that would be kind of cool. It'll be interesting to see how he's able to manage his threat level, or if he's perceived as a threat at all. Next up, a player we've already alluded to and briefly talked about. The one, the only, Star Toomey. Star is 28 years old, currently living in Augusta, Georgia. She is a sales expert. Describes herself as hilarious, smooth, and again, not sticking to 3 words, laugh out loud funny. I know you have thoughts on Star. What are you thinking?
Not gonna win. No, I just don't think there's any world where Star wins this season of Survivor. I'm gonna keep my negativity to a minimum, but I would just say that she is not my favorite.
Yeah. Star, I know, I've known you long enough to know that when I saw Star's video, I knew that you were not going to vibe with Star. And I told you that beforehand. I knew in advance that Star was just not the personality type that you tend to gravitate towards on Survivor or in real life. Because Star is very loud in both volume, but also just personality. Star is, honestly, the name is fitting.
Yeah.
Like, literally is just like a giant, like, fireball of energy. And it is going to be a matter of, like, whether or not the tribe likes that or not. If she gets along with the tribe and they vibe with her personality, I think she'll be okay. But if she starts to, like, annoy them or if it's too much after a few days and everyone's hungry, and if it rains a little bit and you're, like, sleeping and you're uncomfortable and she's just got all this energy and is just very herself, which, like, you can't help but be anything but yourself, but, like, I could just see that rubbing people the wrong way. She reminds me a bit of Carolyn in that way, where I could see her being, I think it kind of goes one of two ways, where it's almost like she's first boot of her tribe, or she makes it, like, to the final tribal council. I could see it legitimately going either way with her. And I don't know where she lands on that spectrum. It makes it very hard to forecast how well she's going to do. Last member of this tribe before we move on to the final tribe.
Thomas Krottinger. He is 34, from LA, and he is a music executive, which is pretty crazy. And he would describe himself as outgoing, emotional, and loyal. What did you think of Thomas?
Yeah, so Thomas, his job is basically discovering artists. Had a hand in, like, bringing Olivia Rodrigo to mainstream.
Yeah.
Which is pretty wild. Thomas gives me John Lovett. I don't know if that's just because, like, if that's just the vibe, like, coming right off, like, successful white man, like if that's just the vibe I'm getting. But I start to think.
Do you think he's going to keep it to himself, his occupation?
I don't know. I haven't seen anything where he said he is. Most everyone who was changing what their occupation was, they mentioned it. I haven't seen or heard anything about him lying about his occupation. So I don't know.
I would probably, like, if I was him, I would say I work in music, but I would not say I'm like an executive where I'm discovering famous artists.
I think he could go the way of John Lovett, right? Being like first boot. But again, I think John going first was a fluke. I don't think John should have been the one to go first. And it wasn't even that John went first because he was
John
Lovett. It was because of the Andy stuff. And he just didn't really fit in with the tribe. So I think the question would be like, does it feel like Thomas will fit in with this tribe? And I think Thomas will. I don't know if Thomas fits in with this cast. I think that this probably isn't the cast for him to win. I think Thomas probably wins on another season, potentially. He seems like he could be a winner somewhere else. But the vibes aren't that he wins this season. What's your read on Thomas?
I said that I think people will like him, but I don't think he is going to win. He doesn't scream winner vibes to me, but I think he could mesh and make it far, but I just can't get a read on how well he's going to actually play the game. All right. On to
final
the last
tribe that will fly through, and then we're going to draft them. The green tribe is Vula. And the Vula tribe gives me Civa vibes. Not even just because they're green, but
just because they're there.
They feel but they just like their composition, and like we'll talk about it some, but for whatever reason, I feel very much the same about this tribe that I did about Civa. First up, we have Cedric McFadden. He is currently living in Greenville, South Carolina. He is a colorectal surgeon, and he describes himself as dependable, determined, and conscientious. He can count to 3. Good job, Cedric. I hope you can count to 3 with your career. What are your thoughts about Cedric?
I said that he could be perceived as a threat by being a surgeon because, you got to be really smart to be a surgeon, and that's a lot of school. But high-key gave me early boot vibes. What were your thoughts?
I could see him being an early boot. I definitely could see that where he just isn't meshing with people. He doesn't seem like he's the most physically strong, but he doesn't seem like a physical liability. But he's no like pizza like lifter strong on the tribe, and he doesn't seem as strong as like Kevin. Like there's other players on this tribe that are stronger, and he seems like very smart, and I think people will read that. I don't get the vibe that he takes home the million, and I think he's going to be perceived as a threat if he makes it past the merge, because he doesn't seem like someone who can slide into the background enough, and that's what you need to be able to do. You need to be able to get into the background. Those are my thoughts on Cedric.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with all of that. So, shall we go to the next one? We have Justin Piopi. He is 29 from Winthrop, Massachusetts. He is a pizzeria manager, and he describes himself as compassionate, hardworking, and resilient. What were your thoughts on Justin?
Justin, I think, is interesting. I think people are going to underestimate him because of his profession. But he has...
Didn't he say he went to Yale?
Yeah, he has a degree from Yale. I think he's just like smarter than he let on. And I think he was on a pre-law track before he dropped like he left Yale to go help his parents. Oh, and he was the youngest legislative aide hired at the Massachusetts State House. But I don't think people are going to take him super seriously because he manages a pizzeria, and that's what they're going to see. And they're going to see him with his like long hair that he's been growing out since COVID and all this. And I just don't think they're going to take him that seriously. But I think there's definitely this like underestimated. There's more behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think he definitely was not what I expected just from seeing a picture of him. Like whenever he started describing himself and that he's actually freaking ripped from slinging flour bags all day long. So he definitely is not what he seems, and I think he could use that to his advantage.
I will say, I think that he feels like someone who can, like we were just talking about, I don't know if Cedric can fall into the background. Justin feels like a player that can very easily fall into the background. And I think that that's what you want out of a winner, is someone who can fall into the background.
Yeah.
The next player is someone that I also think can fall into the background. I'll see if you think that's the same. But this is Kevin. He's 34, currently living in Livermore, California. He's a finance manager, describes himself as energetic, social, and determined. What do you think of Kevin?
Yeah, I had same thoughts. I think he could very easily make it far. He seems very charismatic and seems like he will get along with basically anyone. And I think that bodes well for him making it far in the game.
Yeah, I think the way that he's going to basically play up this sort of Fabio, ditzy, airheaded himbo guy, like that whole shtick, I think that could really work to his advantage. And I think he will make people underestimate him. Because he's actually a nerd. Like he's a dorky dude. But he got jacked specifically to go out on Survivor, and he is like pretty jacked. But there are other, like we've talked about, there are other bigger physical threats out there. So post-merge, I think he is not the biggest physical threat, where he falls back behind a lot of them as being the bigger threat to get out right away.
Next up, we have Mary. She is 31 from Philadelphia. She is a substance abuse counselor, and she would describe herself as chaotic, dynamic, and thoughtful. What did you think of Mary?
Well, she is Carolyn Part 2 in that she's also a substance abuse counselor.
Yeah.
And I would say that Carolyn was also chaotic, dynamic, and thoughtful. So I think that they're aligned in that regard. Mary, for me, I think is the hardest of everyone to place. I think I don't know. I'm more interested to hear what your read is on her, because I really don't know how I feel about Mary.
Yeah, I'm kind of iffy on her, especially because she said she wants to play like Ben, which I thought was weird. I've never heard anyone saying they want to play like Ben. So I thought that was interesting. I think that she could make it far if people get along with her. So I think it entirely depends on what her tribe thinks of her.
She seems very smart, strategic. I think that she will form alliances well. And she says she really likes Ben, and Ben searching for idols at all hours and stuff. Like, is she going to be really looking for idols?
I think she said something along the lines of I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And I was like, I don't know how well that's going to go over.
Yeah. And so it's just, I just don't know how well she's going to do. I think she's going to be very underestimated. I think that's a given. I do not think people are going to take her seriously. And so the question's going to be, can she use that to her advantage? And so I think all comes down to if this tribe can avoid going to tribal council.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Next, we have Say. She's 30 years old from Simi Valley, California. She is a marketing professional, describes herself as outgoing, kind, and driven. What do you think of Say?
What do I think of Say? She seems very assertive, and I think that could either be a good thing or it could be a bad thing. So I think she just needs to be wary of how people perceive her. And if she is able to do that, I think she could do well. But honestly, I don't get like winner vibes from her.
She really likes like Marianne and Drea, and she really likes how like Marianne played like as herself, like just like authentically herself, but then Drea just played like with this like tenacity, and she wants to kind of embody like those two things and bring them together. And I think that like those two pieces coming together, like I see that, and so I think that she, to me, feels like she could be a legitimate threat, but I think people are going to catch on. I Say to me feels like a mergatory boot or a split tribal boot. I think she's safe on her own tribe potentially, but once other people start to meet her and realize that she's like really playing the game, I think that can start to worry people. But again, I just don't know how all these bigger physical threats are going to factor into everything. And if those are perceived as the bigger threat, I think some of these less physical players start to slide through the cracks. And I think she has a chance to really do well if that is the case. But I agree. I don't necessarily get like winner vibes, but I don't get first boot vibes. And then our very last player before we move into our draft and wrap this all up,
Stephanie Berger.
Mm-hmm.
So Stephanie is 38. She is from Brooklyn, New York. She is a tech product lead, and she would describe herself as ambitious, outgoing, and resilient. What did you think of Stephanie?
Stephanie is...
There's someone that Stephanie reminds me of, and I cannot put my finger on it.
So Stephanie, for me, is Emily Flippin mixed with... I had a really good like mix, but I don't remember who my other one is now. But I get a lot of Emily out of her, kind of the very like analytical side. And then she kind of has like this like quirkiness to her and like very artsy side to her too, where like maybe that's even like a little Carolyn-y, but not quite so Carolyn-y. But Stephanie to me gives season main character energy. She doesn't give winner of the season, but she gives eating up the edit energy. She gives 8 confessionals an episode energy.
Mm-hmm.
Until she's eventually not in the season anymore. Kind of like a Andy or a Emily or that sort of just hogging up the screen, because she's got a lot of personality. She seems very smart. I think people will like her, but I think she'll probably be abrasive towards other people. So I think she'll be divisive, which I think is kind of what you want for someone to be, like that main character. And so she gives me that player. She doesn't feel like she wins, but she gives main character of the season energy.
I can definitely see some of that. I said that I said I couldn't really get a read on her. She seems very like carefree and easygoing. Like she seems very free-spirited.
Here we go. I got you. Kendra and...
Yes, Kendra. That's who she reminds me of.
Kendra and Flippin.
Okay, yes.
That's the two.
Kendra was...
Kendra and Emily.
Kendra is
That's
perfect.
the two.
That is who it reminded me of.
it's Kendra and Emily. It's like if you took Kendra and you made her more analytical and like a little bit more abrasive.
Yeah,
I think that's who that is.
Something about her gave me like astrology, flower child vibes.
Yeah, she was apparently like in the preseason, like before they were all going out, she was doing art like out in the courtyard or something. Like that makes sense. So
yeah,
I think she is just like those two players coming together. That's the vibe I get. Which to me, I mean, both of those players made it pretty far. I think that she gives that like sort of main character gonna carry a bulk of the edit potentially into the post merge of the season, but I don't think she carries that to a win.
Yeah.
But I think that she could hog a lot of the screen time potentially.
Well, we've covered all of the contestants in excruciating detail.
We've gone through them. We've talked about them. Clearly, we're excited about this cast.
Yes.
And I'm excited to see how we rank each of these people. You won last season, and so because of that, you get to decide if there's a tribe that you want to pick from first, or if you want to defer that choice to me.
I want to pick first from the purple tribe.
From Loki. Okay. So that means I'll pick first from Civa and Vula, and then you'll have the pick of the litter from Loki.
Yes.
All right. We're starting with Civa because we're going in the same order we just were. Options on the table are the men David, Kyle, and Mitch, and the women Charity, Chrissy, and Kamilla. My pick, I'm taking Charity.
No.
Charity might. I almost want to call her my winner pick, but I got to think through that a little bit. But it's like she feels like just like the total package, and is just like, it's like how like the vibes I got when I picked Kenzie. Like it's just like I feel good about that.
You know, Charity would have been my first pick from that tribe too.
Okay, so all right, so I've got Charity. Now you have your pick of all the rest of Civa tribe.
You picked the best one by a mile too. I think I'm going to go with Kyle.
Kyle was who I had second on my list.
Yeah.
So I don't disagree with that choice at all. It feels like a pretty good pick here. I think my next pick is going to be Chrissy.
That's who I would have picked next to.
I think Chrissy feels like going the furthest out of these.
Then I will pick David.
Yeah, David is. We're going. I felt like you were probably going to go David next. So,
and it's not because that I think that Mitch, because my next pick I was between him and Mitch, and it's not because
I actually have Mitch higher than David, but
I only am picking David over Mitch because I think it is going to be very hard for Mitch to shake the too good narrative that he has.
Yeah. And so then now I'm basically picking for the two of us.
Yes.
I decide who I think is more likely between Mitch and Kamilla. And like this is where I made the Rachel mistake last year. So I could just give you the winner here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna go with Mitch. I just think I
like Mitch. I kind
of
wanted you to take Kamilla so that you would have all the women, I'd have all the men. That'd be so funny.
Yeah, I want to diversify a little bit because I do also feel like the men this season, for the first time in the new era, are stronger than the women as a whole, and that's kind of surprising that that's not the way it's been. But I think that in general, I think that Mitch just I like him too much to not take him here.
Yeah.
So I really am happy scooping him up there. So that leaves me with Charity, Chrissy, and Mitch, and then you with Kyle, David, and Kamilla.
Next.
If it will let me go to the next slide. There we go. Boom. All right. Loggy,
Okay.
and you get to pick first.
Okay, I'm between two people. I'm between who my gut wants to think the winner is and who I think has the best shot on this tribe. But I think I'm going to go with Shauhin as my first pick.
Okay.
Because I think he is a gamble. So I'm just hoping it pays off.
I'm going to take
But
Eva.
Yeah, that was who I was it was either him or Eva.
Shauhin was my number 1 on this tribe, and then Eva was my number 2. I had them close. It was sort of, I was happy taking whoever you didn't take out of those two.
Mm-hmm. And then
Eva feels, I feel like I have the 2 strongest women out of the entire cast in my mind. I think that's where my tribe is at.
yeah.
I think that's because this is, like we said, like it's a cast with a lot of strong men. I think like Charity and Eva are the strongest of the women, but Shauhin, like we said, I do think he's going to be pretty good.
Yeah. So then I am going to take Bianca next.
Okay. Did all my talking about her sway you on that?
A little bit, and
you
I
didn't seem
want
like a fan of her.
I want another woman
Diversify. All right.
because I wasn't taking Star, so
Well, Bianca was who I had next, so
I wanted to snag her away from you.
well, I'm going. Yeah. So Bianca 100% would have been where I would have gone. I'm gonna go ahead and manifest this alliance and take Joe, and hope that Joe and Eva.
I hope another 46 happens where your members are attacking each other.
Maybe.
Okay.
I hope another 46 happens where I win. So
yeah. All right. Thomas, come on over.
All right. Hey, I'm okay with that. I actually had Thomas last on mine.
Really?
So yes,
Okay.
I had Star above Thomas because I think Star is boom or bust. You make it past the first tribal council, I think Star is in the clear.
Okay. Last tribe.
All right. Final tribe, the Vula tribe, the Green tribe.
These are the ones that I like. All these contestants I feel iffy about. I don't
Really?
feel the best about any of these people.
Well, I feel very strongly about one.
Well, take him.
I want Justin.
Okay.
Justin is who I felt the strongest about out of maybe everyone. And if you would have deferred for me to pick first, I might have wanted to pick first from this tribe.
Okay. I want Kevin.
Okay. I am okay with that. I'm going to play the numbers game and take Stephanie.
Yeah, so I figured you would
because I think that she's gonna be in a lot of the season. Even if I don't think she necessarily wins, like I think she makes it post merge.
I am gonna take Sai next.
Say
yes.
All right. Say I'm all right with that. I'm gonna take Cedric, who was actually my number 3. So I had like Kevin and Cedric kind of like tied, honestly. So I was like kind of happy with either of them. So I am okay with taking Cedric here.
And I got Mary.
And I'll give you Mary. Once again, this tribe, I think it totally depends on if they go to tribal council often or not. Like, and that feels like very obvious, but I think this tribe in particular, it is like the weakest physically, it seems. I don't know if that's just my read. No, I think that's pretty clear. This feels like the weakest physical tribe.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But a lot of people thought that, Nami at a glance was the weakest physical tribe. We were ahead of the curve, though, when we said we thought Nami was not going to go to tribal council at all. But everybody...
Really? People thought that Nami wasn't going to be good.
Yeah, people
Really?
they looked at the cast. I mean, they were all small, and like, I mean, you had like Beanpole and Venus over there, you know. So it's like they looked at Nami, and you've got Venus, and you've got Tevin, and you've got Soda, and you've got like, sure, you have Hunter, but people also, I don't think people were really reading on like him being like this like challenge god at home, and so I just don't think people were thinking about it that way. So people like, yeah, people were not very high from stuff that I've like seen. I know like Mike Bloom wasn't very high, and Rob Sesternino, like they weren't like they weren't very high on Nami, and so we were on the right side of that one. So in my mind,
Rob
it feels like,
Sesternino, hire us.
yeah, bring us in. We'll be another podcast for you. Just bring us into the network. With that being said, who do you think is, before we make our like winner prediction, who do you think is the first boot?
From the Vula tribe?
From it could be from any tribe.
I'm gonna go with Mary.
Okay. I am, because I do think it's going to be Vula. Who is going to,
Or Say. I think it's Mary or Say.
I think it could be either of them. I think bold prediction. I think it's Kevin.
Okay.
I'm just gonna put it out there into the world and say that maybe it's Kevin.
I'm just excited to see how wrong our predictions are.
Yeah, that's always the crazy thing to see is
Who are the surprise duds that we think are going to be really good, and who are the ones that end up really being really good, who we thought were going to be duds. So
yeah,
that's what I'm most excited to see.
Yeah, it's always fun to see those, and I think it's, I don't know if you agree with this, but I think it's almost just as fun to be like
Wrong.
really wrong,
Yeah,
as it is to be right.
Mm-hmm.
Because when your expectations are turned on their head, there is this kind of joy that comes along with that, where you're surprised as you're watching the season go through. So I think that is exciting. As we end it here, is Shauhin your like official winner prediction, or is there someone else not on your tribe that you would say is like your winner, like who you pick to be like the winner?
I think my winner would be between him. I think my top three right now are him, Charity, and Eva. I think those are probably my top three winners. So among them, I'd probably say it's between him and Charity. And just because it's hard for history to be broken, this is the longest streak we've had of female winners. There's never been 4 in a row. So solely for that reason, because it's hard to break history, I'm going to go with Shauhin.
Okay. I do think Shauhin has a good shot. I would also be very inclined to say Charity. I think that Charity has a really good shot. I have a hard time seeing Charity, though, not be identified as a threat near the end. So for that, I think Justin is the winner. So
Okay.
I'm going to have Justin as my winner pick. That to me, though, it's like
That's out there.
yes, but it's the same thing as like if someone would have, like if I would have said Rachel last year, that would have felt out there because it didn't seem like the obvious pick. And whenever I picked Kinsey, you were like, really? Like whenever I took Kinsey first, like you were kind of surprised that was who I wanted on that tribe. So I think that there's always this element of you don't really expect them to be the winner at the beginning. And so I think Justin kind of has that vibe. And I like his story. And I agree. I kind of get the vibe from this season that it's going to be one of the men. I don't know. it just feels like if there's going to be a season in this stretch where it happens, it feels like this might be the one where it is. So I'll put my pin in my prediction as being Justin. But I also think like Shauhin, Charity, Eva, like that would be other ones in the conversation. And then probably Bianca would round out my top 5.
Okay. Well, we have been talking for a very long time. Is there anything you want to say about the Survivor 48 cast before we wrap up, get ready for the premiere, and have our episode 1 recap come out next week?
I think the last thing that I want to say, and it was my favorite thing that I learned during this whole preseason process, and it's that Chrissy thought that Jam Jam's name was Yaya. And
you're lying.
No.
She thought it was Yaya?
Yep.
Like raise your ya.
Yeah. Apparently in her interview with Mike Bloom, she refers to Jam Jam as Yaya. And to me that's very funny.
Raise your ya.
If that's the vibe we're getting out of Chrissy, I hope we get her for the whole season.
That's actually hysterical.
And so I want to leave with that because I think that's amazing.
Whose game do you think you're more similar to? Probably Yaya.
Literally,
I can just imagine Rob being
I think that's the vibe.
Who? Who are you talking about?
And so I think that's pretty funny, and I feel like that's the note that I would like to leave everyone with.
If that's indicative of how the season's gonna go, then we're in for a fun one, that's for sure. So, all right. Well, with that, we will wrap up our Survivor 48 cast first impressions and our draft. Let us know what you think of the cast. Let us know who your winner pick is for the season and whether you think my tribe or Peyton's tribe is the strongest and who won the draft. We would love to hear your opinions, but yeah, Peyton thinks he won, but we'll see. If you enjoyed, we would really appreciate a rating/review wherever you're listening to the podcast, as it helps us grow. Additionally, follow us on whatever streaming platform you listen to us on, and follow us on social media at Idle Talk Podcast on Twitter/X, Instagram, and TikTok. And we will catch you guys in the next one.